Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Jordan here from Artisan Electrics. If you're new to the channel, welcome, thanks for joining us, and if you're a regular subscriber, thanks for coming back. So this video today is one that I've promised for a while, because a few months ago I said in a video that if I hit 5,000 subscribers that I would do a Q&A video with some of your most popular questions that I get asked regularly in the comments and through social media, through Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc. So thanks to all of you who submitted your questions. There have been loads of questions come through. I won't be able to answer every single question in this video, but hopefully I'll be able to answer the most popular ones so that you can satisfy your curiosity, and hopefully it'll be informative to you. So thanks for watching. Settle down. This is going to be a little bit of a longer video. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and give us a thumbs up, because that really helps to push this video out to other people who can benefit from it too. So the first question that I get asked most often, which I know a lot of you would like to find out, is how did I become an electrician? And that's a really good question, because I never really wanted to be an electrician. I'll explain why. So I grew up with my dad being an electrician, and my granddad was an electrician as well. And growing up, you know, my dad was obviously talking about his job at home and stuff like that. Everyone used to ask me, "Oh, are you going to be an electrician like your dad when you grow up?" And I always used to say, "No, I don't want to be an electrician. Electrician's a dumb job. I want to do computers or something like that." So I never really wanted to be an electrician growing up. So what changed my mind? Well, I left school, and typical 16-year-old, I didn't have a clue what I really wanted to do. And what happened at school when I was 16, and probably it still happens, is that everyone gets pushed towards go to college, then go to university and get a degree. And so I just jumped on that conveyor belt really, because I didn't know what else to do. I had fairly good grades at school. I got 6 B's and 4 C's in my GCSEs, so reasonable, and that enabled me somehow, by kind of some miracle, to get into Hills Road Sixth Form College, which is the best sixth form college in Cambridge. So I managed to scrape my way in there, and I chose to study business and archaeology. Really random subjects, I know. I chose archaeology because I thought I'd get to dig up treasure and stuff. It was really stupid. And there was a trip to Egypt which I really wanted to go on. And I chose business because I was interested in business, and I thought it'd be a good skill to have. And to be fair, the business qualification has helped me now running my own business. That has definitely been of benefit, but archaeology was just a complete waste of time, to be honest. So anyway, I was doing my studying at Hills Road, and I grew up quite a lot in that year, to be fair. Between 16 and 17, I learned to drive. A lot changed in my mind, and I started to mature, and I realised that the path that I was on, the path basically leading to university and getting an office job, was not really the direction I wanted to be headed. So I started thinking a lot about where did I really want to end up, and I didn't want to be stuck in an office for the rest of my life. I wanted to get a good job that would help me to be able to support family and provide enough for me financially to do whatever I wanted to do in the future. And a friend of mine said to me, "Your dad's an electrician. He earns really good money. You've always had a nice house. Your dad always drives nice cars. Why don't you ask him if you can do an apprenticeship with him?" And I hadn't really thought about it, to be honest, but it suddenly dawned on me that actually, if I didn't do that, I'd be missing out on a massive opportunity, because my friend was right. He'd my dad did have a good job. He'd always been able to provide for us as a family, and he seemed to enjoy his work. You know, he was busy with it. It took a lot of time and energy for sure, but he enjoyed it, and I started to get more interested. So I decided to eat humble pie, and after all those years of saying to everyone, no, I don't want to be an electrician, oh no, electrician's a dumb job and stuff like that, I actually had to come crawling back to my dad and say, Dad, can you give me an apprenticeship, please? And he did, which was really good of him. So he decided to let me become his apprentice. I quit college, so I'd just done the first year, and I decided not to come back for the second year. And I got so much jip from people at college saying, what are you doing? You're throwing your life away. You need to go to university to get a good job. You're in this great sixth form college. Why would you want to leave? You know, you're on the path to success. And I just ignored them all, and I just said, look, this is what I want to do, and that's what I'm going for. So I quit Hills Road, started my apprenticeship. I did 1 day a week at Cambridge Regional College. So you basically go in for a day a week, you do the theory and stuff at college. They teach you, how to wire circuits up on boards and in little like booths where you've got sort of bricks and stuff like that. Did all that at college, and then I worked with my dad the rest of the time. And I learnt so much. He was really patient with me, because it can be really frustrating having an apprentice. I think it slows you right down every job, and the mess ups that I made, the times when I did stupid things which cost him time and money. But he was patient and he trained me, and eventually, of course, I got to the point where I could actually be quite a help to his business, and I could start to do jobs on my own and stuff like that. But I did my apprenticeship, got qualified, did my AM2, got through that, and then just as I was qualified, we had the devastating news that my dad had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and it was terminal, and 2 weeks later he was gone. That was it. It was like super fast. He'd been sick for about a year, losing weight, problems eating and stuff like that. They didn't know what it was, and by the time that they'd actually found that he had cancer, it was far too late. It had already spread everywhere, basically. And so on his deathbed, he was running through things with me like how to do invoices, how to quote for jobs, because he realised that basically, this is it now, I'm handing over the baton to you, my son, you're going to be taking over the family business now. And I was 21, I just got qualified. My dad was 48, he was young. And it was just like, talk about being plunged in at the deep end, it was really intense. It was a really steep learning curve. So my dad died, I was 21, I had a sister who was 19 and a brother who was 14. And so I felt a bit responsible for providing for my family financially a little bit as well. Yeah, it was a really intense time. So anyway, I did it. You just, when you have to do something, you just do it. You get on with it. And so I just got stuck in. I made stupid mistakes, of course, like you do, because I was young and naive. I remember once I took on a job. This guy phoned me up from a traveller site. And he wanted me to wire up his new mobile home, and he had this plot of land where he was putting in, he wanted me to put all these outside lights up and stuff. So he said, can you come and give me a quote? So I turned up, and he said he didn't really seem to care how much it cost, he just wanted me to do the job. So I thought that was a good thing, great, yeah, when can you start? Can you start tomorrow? Yeah, sure, no worries. So I got stuck in straight away, did a first day, and we had another guy working for us, actually my uncle at the time as well. So me and my uncle were working together on it, did a long day. At the end of the day, he paid me in cash. Like, how much do I owe you for today? So I told him, like 400 quid or something. He paid me in cash, So I thought, great, I'm onto a good thing here. But there was loads more work to do. So the next day we came back, we just carried on, and we put a lot of materials in. We spent about, I think, 6 days working there in total. Got everything wired up and connected. blah blah blah. And the guy, of course, suddenly became uncontactable as soon as the job was finished. Kept making excuses when I did manage to get in touch with him. Oh, can I pay you in Irish pounds? Oh yeah, don't worry, I will pay you, just give me a few more days, and all that stuff. And of course, he never intended to pay. And eventually he got really aggressive when I tried to kind of chase him up. I threatened to take him to court and stuff like that. And it was just not happening, so I just had to write it off as a loss in the end, basically. But I learned from that you have to be really careful what kind of customers you take on board. And if you've got a bad feeling about the job from the start, just say no, don't go there. Or get them to pay everything up front, or at least cover the materials up front, so you've covered your back. Anyway, I digress, but that's how I became an electrician, basically, is doing an apprenticeship and learning on the job. And I can say for sure, and I know any other qualified electricians who are watching this who've done an apprenticeship will agree with me, that the number one way to become an electrician is to do an apprenticeship. There's no comparison between doing an apprenticeship or just doing like a 30-day course or something like that, because you need on-the-job experience. That's absolutely key. What you learn in college is really important, and the theory and everything, that is super important. But actually being on site, learning on the job, hands-on experience in the real life environment is absolutely priceless. You cannot buy experience. All you can do is work and gain experience. And that 3 to 4 year apprenticeship period, learning from scratch, is a real valuable time, because at the end of it you have some real skills that you can put into use. And I was able to actually take over my family business and run it, even though I made a few mistakes along the way, but without major disaster I managed to run the family business. And that was only because I'd done an apprenticeship. I'd been trained really well by my dad and by the instructors at college, and so I was able to carry that on. Now you might wonder, well, how did you start Artisan Electrics then? Is that the family business that you took over, or is that a different business? And that's a really good question, so I'll talk to you about that. So the business that my dad had was AC Electrics, and that was a business that he'd started from quite a young age himself, and he'd run his own business, AC Electrics, for a long time. So I took that over when my dad died, and I ran that business for a few years. A year after my dad died, I got married, and my wife and I ran AC Electrics together for a few years. And then we got to a point where we wanted to do something a bit different. We wanted to actually go abroad. So we sold AC Electrics, and then we went abroad and we travelled around the world, and we did volunteer work for a few years. So we travelled to South Africa. We were there twice for 3 months each time. We went to Croatia for 6 months to volunteer work out there. We did a bit of volunteer work in London for nearly a year as well, and also in the Netherlands. And it was all electrical work, but on a volunteer basis. And I learned a lot in that time as well, because I got to work with electricians from all over the world, different systems, different standards, and some of the projects were big industrial size projects. And I got to learn a lot of people management skills as well, because at one point I was running a team of like 20 electricians in the Netherlands, for example. I was the electrical manager for that site, and so I was running a big team. I was helping with design as well for the project, so it was good fun, and I learnt a lot along the way, and that helped me actually to get to the point where I am today. So after 5 years of kind of on and off volunteer work, we decided to come back to the UK, and we started Artisan Electric. So 2016 we decided, okay, we're going to settle back into the UK for a while. Going to need to get some work and earn some money, because we've been working as volunteers for a few years, so we basically had no money. And so I started Artisan Electrics, and it all started with just an idea. You know, the name just sort of popped into my head. I was aiming for sort of a high-end target market. I wanted people who were looking for quality, installation, and were not so much worried about price, but just wanted a good job doing. And so I thought Artisan kind of fit that theme quite well. And so I came up with the name, designed a logo, set up a website, set up a Twitter, Instagram, Facebook pages, and just sort of grew it from scratch, really. And I'll talk to you in another video about that, how to start an electrical business from scratch, because that's quite a feat, but it is possible. And if you're a young apprentice who's just got qualified, and maybe you're looking to start your own business, or maybe you'll be interested in that video. So look out for that video coming soon. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll make that video over the next few weeks. But yeah, that's where I am today. So Artisan Electric's been running for 3 years now, and it's just going really, really well. I've been super, super busy this last year especially. It's just been absolutely flat out. And I'm at the point now where I'm just not sure what to do with it, whether I need to grow it even more, take on some people, or whether just to keep it at the level that it is at the moment. I've got a subcontractor who's doing 2 days a week for me now, because I just can't keep up with the volume of work myself. But I'm kind of hesitant to employ someone just because I'm not the kind of person who's looking to run like a massive empire and take over the world. I like to keep things simple. My work-life balance is really important. I have a lot of time that I like to spend with family and friends and do things that are important to me, and I don't want work to get in the way of that. So at the moment I'm trying to just keep it as simple as possible, and if I have to say to people, sorry, I'm booked up for the next 3 months, if they're willing to wait, then great, or if they're not, they'll look elsewhere. That doesn't bother me too much. So let's go on to the next question. So this question was posted by Max Musterman on the YouTube channel, and he asks this: do you think that the UK electric regulations or electric in general is outdated? I'm an electrician in Germany, and I'm sometimes a little bit shocked, to be honest, what is allowed in your country or how you do things in the UK. For example, ring mains with 32 amp breaker with all the fuse spurs and isolators, I think is a bit outdated in comparison with what we do in Germany. I think you make a great job in all, but I'm how your standpoint is to the regs. I think he means I'm interested in what your standpoint is towards the regs. And this comment got 12 likes, so this is the most popular question that I put out there. So I was interested by that. So Max, in answer to your question, yes, I do think that the electrical standards and general working practice in the UK is out of date. And that comes from me having worked in countries like the Netherlands and other parts of the world where their standard of working and the materials that they use are just, in my opinion, way advanced compared to what we use here. And I'll give you a classic example, right? We use steel wire armoured cable here. And it's only in the UK that we use this cable. It's so hard to work with. The stiff steel armouring, it's ridiculous. If you go to the Netherlands, they use these really amazing flexible cables to run outside, and they have a armouring to them. And the amazing thing about the armouring is part of it is copper. So you can actually use that copper part of the armouring for your earth, for the cable, and the cores within the cable are fine stranded, so they're so easy and flexible to use. They use these cables all the time, and they're just so much easier to install and to work with. That's just one example. Ring circuits is another example. Like you mentioned, Max, they are so out of date. And I personally, having worked with radials so much in Europe, and realising the benefits of just not using rings. I mean, every time I do an EICR, I would say like probably 1 in 4 EICRs I do, there's a broken ring, either the live conductor, the neutral conductor, or the CPC. And that is just a problem that comes with ring circuits. and it's not necessary. If we just stopped using ring circuits, this problem would go away. And if there's a break in a radial, then part of the sockets just don't work, or they lose earth continuity completely. So it's so much easier to find the problem if you've got a radial. So what I do now, if I'm doing a rewire, I just install radials, 20 amp radials, and I think it's much better. You need to probably install more circuits that way, so cost-wise, maybe it costs a little bit more, but the quality and utilization of the installation is much, much better, in my opinion. So yeah, I agree with you. The UK regulations are out of date. Will it ever change? Maybe, but it might take a while, because what happens here is we're like in a little bubble, we're on an island, and people just work with what they've always known. People don't like change. And so what happens is, people have installed steel wire armour their whole life. Why would they look into using anything else? People have got used to installing ring circuits their whole life. Why would they do anything else? People, unless they go out of their comfort zone, like working in different countries and things like that, they don't even realise what's out there, and you do what they're used to. They stay in their comfort zone. That's just human nature, really. So I don't think things will change soon. Maybe somehow things will start to change in the future. Certainly with social media and things like that, we are influenced more now by a broader spectrum of viewpoints, because we do have the ability to communicate with people in other countries and things like that more. So maybe when the new generation of electricians takes over and they have a broader viewpoint on things, maybe things will start to change, but I'm not really sure about that, to be honest. I hope that answers your question, Max. Anyway, that's kind of my thoughts about it. The next question is from John Brain, and I love this question. This is hilarious. Why do you think Metabo love Nick Bundy more than you? Yeah, thanks for that, John. I really appreciate your question. I don't know why Metabo love Nick Bundy more than me. Probably because he's got that nice little cute face, and they think he'd probably be a nice campaigner for their tools. But no, to be honest, I think that he just got in the right place at the right time, and he was able to get a little freebie from Metabo, which is great. I'm really happy for him. Anything like that, that helps us as YouTubers is really great, because we need those kind of perks in order to keep going, because doing these videos takes a lot of time and effort, and the money is, like barely anything. The ad revenue that I get from these videos is, a few quid here, a few quid there. It's very minimal compared to if I was just working as an electrician for this time, I would make much more money. So we don't really do it for the money, we do it for people, and that we hope that they benefit from their content. And of course, if we do earn a bit out of it in the long run, then that's great, that's nice. But yeah, I think that Nick is a great guy. I've had a bit of communication with him over social media. We did a sticker swap lately, and I like his content. I think he's doing some great content. People really seem to like it because his channel's just like exploding. He only started like 3 months ago, and he's already got more subscribers than I have. So good on you, Nick. And I'm really happy for you that you got the Metabo Chaser. And if there's any tool manufacturers out there who want to send me some free tools as well, then I'd certainly be happy, but I'm not going to be jealous of Nick. I'm just happy for him. So the next question is from Andrew Brown, and he asks, what is the worst balls up you've done, and how did you rectify it? So for our international viewers, balls up basically means mistake. So what is the biggest mistake that I've made, and how did I rectify it? That's a really good question, and I was trying to think about this. I don't want to sound, what's the word, overconfident, but I haven't made any major mistakes that I can look back on and think, oh my goodness, that was a disaster. Maybe I've just got a foggy memory, but I can't actually think of anything. One thing that I did think about is when I was an Apprentice, I cut through a telephone cable with a circular saw when I was cutting some floorboards. That was pretty annoying. I've never cut through any water pipes. I've never fallen through any ceilings. What have I done? I really badly mashed up my dad's van when I was an apprentice. So I'll tell you about that. So my dad was off sick and I had to cover for him. We did temporary electric installations for English Heritage. We did like set up for events that they held at this English Heritage property called Audley End House near Saffron Walden. And so we used to go there and we had this trailer with this really big SY cable. It was like a 25mm 5-core SY cable that we used to run in from the main building to a temporary 3-phase DB, and then we used to run out from there to single-phase DBs, and then out from there to lights, sockets, and all this temporary electrics that we used to put in. And we used to go every weekend when they had events, roll it all out, and then pack it away after the event. So this trailer, I'd never driven with a trailer before, and my dad was like, "Oh, you'll be fine, you know, just be careful." I didn't even have a license to drive with a trailer. I realised afterwards that you're supposed to have like a special license to drive with a trailer if you're under a certain age. But I didn't have it. It was on a private site anyway. And basically, I was reversing with this trailer and the trailer just like doubled back on the van. But the problem was that it had these wooden bits sticking out of the side because we'd sort of made the trailer specially to hold the cable so we could wind the cable in a figure of 8 onto the trailer. And these wooden bits that were sticking out, one of them, because the trailer swung right back on the van, it punched a hole straight through the side of the van. So there was a whacking great hole in the side of the van, and then I had to drive home and tell my dad what I'd done. And it was, yeah. I mean, he was amazing, to be fair. He didn't like blow his top or anything. He understood, and he had to pay like 500 quid excess to get it fixed. But I just felt really bad. And I think he felt bad because he basically sent me to do the job when I wasn't really ready for it. But yeah, that was a bit of a balls up. And how did I rectify it? Well, I didn't. My dad just covered it, which was really nice of him. Yeah. Electrical work-wise, I can't think of any major balls ups that I've made. I'm sure there must be some. I'm going to have to think about that one a bit more. So the next question is from Benny M. Thanks, Benny, for your question. What are, he says, best tips to start up by yourself and get working? That's a really good question. So what I did, starting Artisan Electrics from zero, is first you want to get a good company name in mind, right? I know a lot of electricians name their company after themselves. I always start a company with a view to selling it later, because I believe that you never know what the future holds. You might want to sell your company, and so you need to set it up from the ground up as generic as possible so that it doesn't rely on you, so you can take yourself out of the equation. So I didn't name my company J. Farley Electrical or whatever. I named it Artisan Electrics because that has nothing to do with me. So you pick a name, go online and get a logo designed. You can get one designed super cheap. I used Taylor Brands. Get your logo designed, then set up social media pages and a website. So for me, I used Design Crowd. It's like sort of a crowd sourcing website where you can basically tell a bunch of designers what you want, and they all sort of bid for your project. They send you designs, and you pick the winner, and they're the ones that you pay based on the one that you prefer. It's a really good way to get a good design. I'll put a link in the description for that. So website, social media. So get Twitter, Instagram, Facebook pages set up. And then how to get work in. There are some brilliant websites where you can get work by buying leads. And that's how I started to just get work trickling in. So I used ratedpeople.com. Now their leads are quite overpriced now, I must admit, but at the start it was fairly reasonably priced 3 years ago. And what you do basically is you go on there, you set up a profile, and people post jobs on there, and if you like the sound of the job, you just pay to buy the lead, which then gives you the contact details. You contact the customer, give them a quote, or just go and do the job. So I initially got a lot of my work through ratedpeople.com, and the other good thing about that is you get a rating after each job, which helps you to build up an online reputation, which is really important. The other thing I used is mybuilder.com, which is very similar to Rated People. Again, you buy leads, but the customer has to choose you and shortlist you. If they shortlist you, you pay for the lead, you get the customer's contact details, and then again you can basically contact them and quote for the job or do the job, and they can rate you afterwards. So yeah, Rated People and My Builder, two really useful places to get new jobs. I also did Local Heroes, which worked quite well for a while. Advertising wise, I have made a video about marketing for electricians. I'll put a link in the description for that. But Google My Business page, you need to have a Google My Business page. That's really important. And what I did, again with the idea of selling the business in the future, maybe, is I set up a virtual business address. So my business address is bang in the centre of Cambridge, 20 Station Road. It's a really expensive part of Cambridge, but basically if you look at the pin, it's like almost directly in the centre of Cambridge. And so for Google My Business, if anyone in Cambridge Googles Electrician Cambridge, because my pin is so close to them, my business appears before a lot of others. So for about 40 quid a month, I've got a virtual office address. All my mail gets sent there, and then they just forward it onto my home address if needed, or I can pick it up from the office address. And if I want to expand later on, I can rent office space there. I can rent parking space there, all that kind of stuff. So that's really useful. So Google My Business is important. Then other advertising opportunities, local parish magazines, an excellent source of local leads. Don't bother with Yale.com, it's rubbish unless you pay like a fortune. Checkatrade is excellent, so now I get loads of work from Checkatrade. I've just been registered with them for just over a year now, but I would say maybe 50% of my work now through Checkatrade. The other 50% is basically organic through Google searches, because what I've done is built up a really good reputation online. So if you Google Artisan Electrics, you will find probably over 100 5-star reviews in total from different platforms. Google My Business, I've got over 50 5-star reviews now, I think. And that basically gives people confidence in you and your services. So the Artisan thing, which is what I was aiming for, high-end, people who want a good service and not worried so much about price, well, that has solidified by getting all the reviews in, because now what happens is the customers I'm looking for are the ones who are looking for me. The customers who want a good job done for a fair price and they want a high standard of customer service. They're searching for me and they see the 5-star reviews and they call me. And when I quote, even if I quote higher than other companies, often they'll go with me because of my reputation. And that is really important. But that's an online reputation. And I know that a lot of people take online for granted, but you can't take online for granted anymore. You need to focus on your online presence. It's really important. So I hope that helps you to understand a bit how to get work in, and once you get a reputation, it will start to build and grow organically to the point where you need to advertise less. Actually, I'm just getting to that point now where I could probably stop doing some of the advertising sources because I've got so many natural leads and recommendations from friends and things like that coming through. But yeah, definitely start with those lead generation services, because they're a way to just get work from nothing, basically. What's the best job you've ever been on and why? And likewise, what's been the worst and why? Matt Williams, thanks for asking that question, Matt. That's a really good question. What is the best job I've ever been on and why? You know what? I really like garden lighting jobs. I don't do that many of them anymore, but we used to do a lot of garden lighting jobs through a garden lighting manufacturer and design company called Lighting for Gardens, and we did some really beautiful garden lighting projects throughout that time. And I really enjoy garden lighting because of enjoying the end result. The actual installation process and all that is fairly tedious and fairly unexciting, although now there's a lot of smart products that you can use and stuff which kind of can jazz it up a little bit. But the satisfaction of designing and installing a system which then you come back one evening just when it's getting dark and you switch it on and you see the customer's face light up and you see the garden looking amazing because of the lighting that you've installed. That for me is one of the best feelings, because being an electrician, that's in general, that's one of the greatest things about being an electrician, is doing a job and then turning it on at the end and seeing it work, and seeing it either help someone's life because of the functionality of it, or just seeing it bring joy to someone. You know, lighting is one thing that it just makes life more enjoyable. You know, good lighting makes life enjoyable. And so for me, that's the great thing of just like switching it all on at the end and it works and it looks great. That's really satisfying. What is the worst job I've been on and why? Probably recently I did a video about this installation where I was installing like 148 down lights in lath and plaster ceilings, and I did the job and it was a nightmare, to be honest. Would I do it again? Probably not. The money was really good, which helps. If you're doing a real nightmare job and you're not getting much money out of it, then that just is like the worst. But if you're doing a real nightmare of a job but you're getting paid really well for it, then it kind of takes the sting out of it a bit, I would say. So this job, it was just so mucky because it was all lime plaster, laths, and some of it had like metal lath behind, so I'm drilling these holes out and fishing my hands around and getting my hands all scratched up inside these ceilings and stuff. It was a bit of a horrible job, and it just dragged on for a long time because it was a 5-story house, and up and down ladders, lifting carpets up and stuff, because we pulled in a load of data cables there as well. It was a bit of a pig of a job, but I kind of enjoyed it because I was being paid well for it, and I do like a bit of a challenge. So there haven't been that many jobs where I could say to you, like, I really wish I hadn't taken on that job. Because in general, whatever I do, I just give it my best. And if it's a nightmare, well, I just kind of view it as a challenge. And I try not to let it get me down. I just plough on and get it done. And at the end of the day, when it all is switched on and working and you're paid, you're happy. That's what I find. So most jobs I will take on if the money's right. If the money's not right, I won't touch it. But some people, they don't care how much it costs. What they care about is the result, and that's a lot of my clients actually. They come to me because they know I'm the guy who will say, not, oh, that's impossible, but I will say, that's possible if the price is right. Because at the end of the day, it's just like time, tools, and effort. You know, if you allow enough time, good enough tools on a job, and enough effort, you could get it done. You know, and if the budget is available to do that, then yeah, anything is possible, basically. So I never say no to a job. I'll say yes, but it's going to cost you, or it's going to be a challenge. Are you prepared to cough up for it? So I hope that answers your question, and thanks for that question. Michael Boys says, how did you become qualified? Did you do an NVQ apprenticeship? So I've basically answered this question already with the first question, how did you become an electrician? But I didn't specify, but yes, it was an NVQ apprenticeship, so it was a NVQ 3. Excuse me. It was an NVQ 3 in electrical installation. I did the AM2 test, and then I also did the City and Guilds 2391, I think it was at the time, which was the testing and inspection. I did that, and then since then I've also done all my updates, obviously, like, because it was 16th edition when I got qualified, so then I did the 17th edition update, then I did the amendment 2 or whatever, 1 and 2 or whatever it was, and then I did my 18th edition, and I've done my electric vehicle charging course as well. Courses that I would like to do in the future: solar PV, I'd like to do that. I'd like to get into energy storage, so I'm looking to do a kind of energy storage course, like with batteries and stuff like that, but I don't think there's many of those out there at the moment. Fire alarms as well, I would like to do a fire alarm course. I did do a little bit of fire alarm work, but I'd like to get a bit more knowledge about that. So I hope that answers your question, Michael. Rob Nichols asks, best way of getting experience and knowledge. So as I mentioned earlier, the best way to get experience and knowledge is to do an apprenticeship. That is by far the best way. But if you can't get an apprenticeship, because I appreciate that they are like gold dust nowadays, then second best way to get experience and knowledge is just offer your skills for free to an electrician who you know has a good reputation. Say to him, look, I'm willing to work for free if you'll just help me to gain some experience and knowledge. And if you send that out to as many electricians as you can, eventually someone will say yes. I mean, someone who needs an extra pair of hands isn't going to turn down some free labour. So, but then what you've got to do is, when you're doing it, be diligent. You know, don't walk around with your hands in your pockets. Be there and think ahead. When you see that there's a need, jump in there and fill that need. You know, take initiative. That's the kind of work that people appreciate. You know, so if I had someone working for me for free, although you're working for free, I'll still expect you to pull your weight, because I'm teaching you and I'm giving you knowledge and experience, and so I'd expect you to be there to help, to be willing to do anything, even if it's a bit of a mundane job, because that's what you're there for. You're there to support my business, but also I'm helping you to gain experience. So I hope that answers your question. Marcus Moore asks, I'm just starting out on my own. I don't have my own Part P governing body yet. It seems daunting to get someone to come out and judge your work. How was your first experience doing so, and do you have any tips which can help me? Kind regards, Marcus. So Marcus, in answer to your question, when I took over my dad's business, he was NIC, EIC approved, and so that was the track that I chose to go down. Now, I appreciate a lot of people want to be NAPIT registered. They think NAPIT's good as well. I've heard good things about NAPIT, so I can't complain about that, but I just chose NIC because basically it is still the one with the best reputation out there. Often, like councils or property agencies and things like that will specify must use an NIC, EIC approved electrician. So I still think that being NIC, EIC approved from a business perspective is the best. But you're asking about having your work judged, and I do appreciate that that is an intimidating thing. Every year I still get nervous when my NIC, EIC inspector comes out to me. Even though I'm confident in the quality of my work, it's just a scary thing when someone is there picking your work apart and kind of looking for mistakes almost. But I would say, remember this. This is what my uncle taught me. He's an electrician too, and he said, remember this. They need you. You don't need them. What does that mean? At the end of the day, they're running a business. They need your money, right? So it's in their interests to help you to continue to qualify and be approved. And if you're newly registering, well, it's in their interest to get you on board, right? So don't be too intimidated. They are obviously obliged to look for mistakes and things like that because they need to maintain a certain standard. But they're there to support you at the end of the day and your business. So don't let them intimidate you too much, but rather actually tap into that source of knowledge, because often these area engineers who come out and check your work, they are electricians with a lot of experience themselves, and you can tap into that knowledge, you know, and they receive a lot of ongoing training and they know a lot about the regulations. So you can benefit from that, and you're paying for their visit. So you might as well try and get as much knowledge out of them while they're there as you can. Ask them questions, you know, how would you handle this situation? What would you do if this issue came up in an installation? And see what they would say. And if there are any little things that you have made mistakes and stuff, don't worry, because they give you time to rectify them and then, you know, resubmit the application or whatever. So it's never like you don't just like fail it and that's it, you've lost your chance. They will give you more chances. You would have to be doing something really dangerous and negligent for them to either kick you off or not accept you in the first place. So I would say don't be too intimidated, just try and view it as a beneficial thing for you and your business and as a learning experience. So I hope that helps. Albert Klein asks, will you break the seal on the main fuse if the job you do cannot be postponed? Albert, yes, I do break the seal on the main fuse regularly. If there's no main isolator for the installation, then you have to. That's the only way that you can isolate the power when you're doing a consumer unit replacement. So yeah, I cut the seal, I pull the main fuse, I do my work, put the main fuse back in, and I've got a pack of seals that I just reseal it with afterwards so that it's safe. And that's what most electricians do. I know that it's sort of like, in the past it was viewed as illegal or something like that to do it, but it's not really viewed that way anymore, and it's something that you can just do as long as you do it safely and you're competent to do so, and it isn't an issue. If you had to contact the DNO and get them to come out and remove the main fuse for you every time you did a consumer unit replacement, and then pay them to come back and put it back in again afterwards, you'd never get any work done. It's impossible. I don't know any electricians who actually do that. You know, it just doesn't happen in the real world. You just pull the main fuse, do your job, you put it back in again, and if you're good, you'll seal it again afterwards, just so that no, you know, layperson can come and just pull it out whenever they want. So at least it's secure. So I hope that answers your question, Albert. Richard Newton asks, did you get the flat rewire you quoted for in last week's video? So that was actually probably 3 weeks ago now. I posted a video about how to quote for a rewire in a real nightmare of a flat. I'll put a link in the description of this video so you can check that out if you've not seen it already. And the answer is no, I didn't get the quote, thankfully, so I won't be doing that job. I didn't actually hear back yet from the customers. I don't know for sure that I didn't win the job, but I doubt very much because the price was ridiculously high, as you probably saw if you watched the video. And actually now, because of all the feedback that I received from that video, I would quote it differently anyway. I would be quoting for battening out the ceilings, plasterboard, and running everything that way rather than chasing out the ceiling. So I learn a lot from this channel. You know, I get some great comments on the videos saying, thanks, I learned so much from your videos. But I learn a lot from your comments. So I want to thank you all for leaving comments, because I learn and everyone else who reads the comments learns from them as well. So this is not just you learning from me, this is actually me learning from you and you learning from each other as well. It's like a forum of learning. And that's why I think YouTube is such a great platform, and I'm really glad that this is something that's possible now. What a great thing that we're able to do. So let's see. Scott Bamford asks, have you always worked alone, Jordan, as Nick Bundy now has someone, same as Thomas Nagy, aka Street Hawk, and DSS Electrical? So Scott, no, I haven't always worked alone. As I said, when I ran my dad's company, my uncle worked for me. He wasn't actually a qualified electrician, he was sort of like a labourer, but he'd worked with my dad for about 20 years and he knew how to do most of the basic electrical tasks. But then I laid him off after a while because he was also a gardener. He did gardening part-time and electrics part-time, and he was happy to just focus on gardening after a while. And then, as I said, I went away and did other stuff. So when I came back, I just started up on my own. Now I don't have anyone working for me as such, but I do have a subcontractor who is a great guy who I've used for quite a few years on and off. And he does 2 days a week for me at the moment because I've just got too much work on. Would I think about taking someone on? Yes, I have been thinking about it. But the problem is that this business can be a little bit feast or famine. And the thing that always worries me is, what if it dries up and I'm having to pay someone for just sitting around doing nothing? That's probably me being overly worried about things. But when you're by yourself, if there's a day when there's no work, great, you just take a day off, you catch up on stuff in the office, or you do something that you would enjoy doing. But when you've got someone who's employed and you're paying them every day, whether the work is there or not, that's a little bit more of a responsibility, and it's not something that I'm really wanting to take on at the moment. I don't really need to. And I don't really see the financial benefit of taking someone on, because I don't think I would earn that much more if I took on an apprentice or an electrician's mate at the moment, to be honest. So the way it is at the moment, I'm happy with it. But that might change, so I'll never say no. And the next question that someone asked is kind of related. He asked, this is Trevor L, he asks, do you let people come and work with you to gain experience unpaid? So Trevor, no, I haven't done so far. Well, I did it once actually with a kind of a mate he's now an electrical engineer. And Pete, if you're watching this, do you remember that few days that you came and worked with me? That was good fun. I let him come and work for me for free, and that was really nice. But he was a mate, and it was a bit different. It would really depend on the circumstances of the person, I think, and that person would have to kind of prove to me that this was something that they really wanted and that they were really willing to work hard for it. Because I have to really focus when I'm working. I have to get a lot done. It's just the way I work, because my time is extremely valuable. And so having someone else with me working for free, although it sounds good, it would slow me down, and that's something that I have to take into consideration. But again, never say never. So we'll see over the next couple of years if I want to do that. Maybe I will. Who knows? John Tressler asks, this is a good one, what do you do when friends and family ask for a favour or a could you just? So I think now that they finally learnt that they don't bother to ask me because I'm always too busy. So generally I will say no, because the tendency to, oh, could you just do this, or can you do me a favour, the tendency is to cut corners, maybe. And I just don't have time for working for free for people. I've done a lot of working for free in my life, and I do it when I choose to do it, but I don't do it when people kind of push it on me, like they expect it. I don't think that's fair. You should never expect someone to work for nothing, to give you a favour. Someone who's got a skill deserves to be paid for the use of that skill. If they choose, out of the goodness of their heart, to, at the end of the job, say, don't worry about it, it's a favour, then that's great. But if you push yourself on them like, oh, can you do me a favour? Or, could you just do this? That is unfair, because at the end of the day, that person is taking time out from when they should be working to provide for their family or doing other important things that they would usually have to do. And so you should never expect them to give their time for free. That is just unfair in my opinion. But if they choose to do it for free for you because they want to, because that's something that they want to do and that makes them feel good, then that's great, and I have done that in the past. I mean, I rewired my sister's house for free because I wanted to. So I actually quoted her for the job first of all, so she'd know how much it would cost. And at that point, I was too busy; I couldn't really take it on anyway. But after a few months, she still needed it doing, and my uncle's an electrician as well, so I contacted him and we said to each other, hey, how about we go down there for a weekend, we just do long days and we just smash it out, we do it together. That way it's not too much of a burden on one of us, and she'll pay for the materials. Should we do that? And so that's what we did, and that felt great because we did it because we chose to, as a favour to her, you know. But I would never suggest or approve of like family members or friends trying to coax a favour out of someone who's an electrician or plumber or anything else, because I don't think it's fair, it's not respectful. But if they choose to give that as a gift out of the kindness of their hearts because they want to, then that's great, you know, that's really nice. And as I say, I have certainly done that in the past. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Is the goal to expand the company, or would you prefer to go it alone? So I've kind of touched on this already. This is from Andrew Dobson. Thanks for your question. I don't really see myself expanding. I could. I have thought about it, and I've sort of projected myself. Okay, in 5 years' time, imagine if I've got like 10 vans running, you know, and got 15 electricians working for me and stuff like that. And part of me would love to do that because I'm an ambitious person, and I can see that there's potential to grow this business massive. You know, already if I wanted to, I could take someone on, advertise a bit more, and I could be doing sort of double the turnover or something like that I'm doing. But the question is, do I really want the stress and anxiety of running a business of that size when I have everything that I need right now? I'm earning really good money. I don't even work full time every week. I work some weeks I work only 3 days. I work long days, but that gives me more time to do the things that I love, be with my family, do things that are important to me. So the question is, do I really need to? Do I really want to expand? And that, I would say, probably not. So for the moment, I'm happy to just keep working for myself, keep things ticking over as they are. Maybe that will change at some point in the future, but I can't really see it, to be honest. I think probably I'm just going to keep things as they are for the moment. I would actually quite like to go abroad again. So I would say that I don't picture myself still being in the UK in 5 years' time. I'd like to be somewhere a bit warmer. And part of my doing the YouTube thing is I'm kind of hoping that I can cut down once the channel grows big enough. So subscribe and hit the like button, please. Then once the channel grows big enough, I can actually work less because it will give me a bit of a reasonable income, and I might be able to just be abroad and still do some videos, and that might be enough to support me and my wife, and we can live the lifestyle that we want. Because my wife's from the south of France, she finds the English weather really difficult, so I would like to be able to take her to live somewhere warm, really. Do you prefer domestic, commercial and or industrial electrics, and what experience have you had in those areas, if any? So I prefer domestic electrical work. That's probably because I'm most experienced in domestic work, so I feel comfortable in it. That's what I got trained on as an apprentice, and that's what throughout my career I've done the most of. I do some commercial work now, small commercial work. I have done industrial work in the past, mainly on a volunteer basis, working on big projects with big control boards, Siemens S7, wiring up control panels and installing 11 kV transformers and stuff like that. Cable tray and big thick armoured cables and steel conduit and all that kind of stuff. And I like that as well, but I guess that because I've mostly done domestic work for most of my career, that's what I feel most comfortable at, and so I'm happy to just do that, to be honest. I find it enjoyable. I find it less stressful. because I'm in my comfort zone. And it's always, when you're doing a job that you've not done many times before, it is a bit more stressful and it takes a bit more energy. So I would say I just prefer to do the thing that I'm comfortable with. Tips and advice for a person who's just started an apprenticeship. So I would say how to be a good apprentice is be diligent. So always turn up on time. Look smart. So, turn up to work with clean clothes. Take care of your appearance because you are reflecting the image of your company that's given you apprenticeship. So they will appreciate that if you reflect a good image of their company by being presentable. Be polite. Be respectful to the person who you're working with and who's teaching you. Listen to them. Don't think that you know better than them. Just listen and try and learn as much as you can and take initiative. Don't stand around with your hands in your pockets just watching. If you see that your electrician who you're working with needs a tool and it's just over there, go and get him that tool. If he needs some materials, bring them over for him. And ask questions. Don't ask too many questions, but ask important questions that you really want and need to know the answer to, and then listen and try to remember the answers. And then next time that job comes up, see if you can put into practice the things that you've learned. So I'd say just be diligent, listen, work hard, be willing, and show enthusiasm for what you are learning, and that will help you to be a good apprentice. Stephen Morgan asks, could you do a full testing video start to finish? I'm well rusty, having not had to do any for a few years. Steve, I did do an EICR video a while ago. I'll put a link in the description for that. Full testing video, I could do that, but it's a lot of work to make that video. So I probably will at some point, but I've not got anything in the works yet. I'm afraid it's just it would just take so much time to do that kind of thing. Nicholas Paulson says, have you ever encountered anything done by a DIYer that was done according to best practices and quality craftsmanship? Actually, yes. Last week, on Thursday, I went to see a job which was a previous customer of mine. I did a consumer unit change for him. There's, I think, a video on my YouTube channel of a time-lapse of a Hager consumer unit change. So it was that customer. He contacted me a few weeks ago and said, I want to run power out to my garage, to my shed, and to my Swedish sweat lodge or something it is. It's like this wooden chalet hut thing where you can have a barbecue in the middle of it. He said that he's prepared to do all the sort of prep work and stuff like that. He just wants me to come in and check it and test everything, and then if I'm happy with it, to give a certificate or whatever. Now, I don't usually do that, so I said to him, look, I will just take a look at it, and if I'm happy with it, I'll issue you an EICR or whatever. I went out to look at it, and this guy has wired up his entire garage in PVC conduit, and it's absolutely immaculate. It's like, I would be proud to have done that job, so I was really impressed. Turns out he's an engineer, an electronics engineer, and he's obviously got attention to detail. So everything's like in metal clad with PVC conduit, all the cabling's done really nicely, connections done really nicely. He's put LED buttons on the ceiling. It looks amazing. I was really impressed, and I would be happy to actually sign my name to that work because it's the kind of standard that I would expect of myself. So yeah, it does happen. I'd say the majority of the DIY that I come across is appalling, but every so often you do get someone who's really diligent and kind of knows what they're doing, even though they're not qualified. And in that case, I kind of say, yeah, okay, hats off to them. I don't mind that kind of thing, But as a general rule, I would say I avoid DIY, and I would not touch it and not go anywhere near certifying it. Okay, so apparently CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. So I'm guessing that's what you're talking about. And the answer is I don't use any CRM management CRM software at all. All my customer inquiries come through a call handling service, so anyone who phones up the business, I have someone who answers my calls for me so that the phone is always answered professionally. Then those inquiries get emailed through to me. Those emails I'll pick up while I'm working out on site, or I'll pick them up at the end of the day when I check my emails, and then I'll contact the customer. I book jobs into my schedule using Google Calendar. So I just use a calendar app on my phone. I use Apple. I've got Apple computer, Apple phone, iPad, etc. And I use the Gmail, a Gmail calendar, but through the Apple calendar apps. And I just book all my slots in there. Most of my communication is done by email or phone, but I don't have any kind of software that I use really. For invoicing, I use Sage 1, and that does all my accounts as well, which is really fantastic and easy to use. But I don't use anything like, for example, David Savory. I know he uses some kind of CRM software. I know that my trusted electrician, he uses Tradify as well. I've not tried that. It
Sorry,
doesn't
I can't
really...
help you search men on Apple Watch.
There goes the Apple Watch. I don't use anything like that. I don't really see the need to do it at the moment. My system seems to work quite well, so I'm quite happy with the way I'm doing things at the moment. It's fairly technological anyway. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question. Now, I did get some questions through on Twitter and Facebook as well, I think. So let me just have a look at those. McElhone Electrical Services. And he asks, number one, what is your most profitable type of work, i.e. fuse board changes, call-outs, big installs, etc.? My answer to that is all of my work is the most profitable type of work because I charge the same for all of it. So in my quoting, I work out how many hours the job is going to take me, and I add a bit on just to be safe in case it takes a bit longer than I expect, and that's how much I charge. So whether I'm doing a fuse box or a call out doesn't really make that much difference. I'd say probably I would earn more from a fuse box change than I do from a call out, just because if you're on a call out job and it takes you an hour, but it takes you half an hour to get there and half an hour to get from there to the next job, then you're only getting paid for 1 hour, whereas you are actually spending 2 hours kind of, or an hour and a half. So, and I don't charge extra for a call out. I don't have a call out charge as such. I just have an hourly rate. So yeah, probably a fuse box job. If I'm working there 8 hours and I get paid for 8 hours, then I'll probably earn more than if I did a day of call outs and I only do 6 call outs in a day. Then I'll earn 6 hours labour instead of 8 hours labour. Also, I would probably charge a little bit of money on the materials for the fuse box. So I'll put 10 or 20% on the materials, so I would earn a bit extra on that as well. Big installs, sometimes they work out well because you price the job, and if you're not quite sure how it's going to go, like sometimes I add quite a big buffer in the job just to be sure that I don't come a cropper if it takes longer than I expect. So if it's like, for example, I estimate that it's going to be a 6-day job, but I think, well, I'll price it for 8 days just in case, and actually it only takes me 5 or 6 days, then yeah, my day rate has significantly increased for those days because I've actually managed to do the job quicker than I quoted for. So sometimes it works out like that, but in general, most of my work is the same profitability. When you are too busy, how do you deal with it, scheduling-wise, or scheduling-wise, I should say? All I do is really easy. I just say to people, I'm fully booked until the middle of November or middle of December, or I'm fully booked for the next 3 months. Can you wait till then? And if they say yes, then I'll book them in. If they say no, that's fine. They can go elsewhere. Simple as that, really. Or, like I have been doing now, I take on a subcontractor to give me a bit of extra wiggle room to be able to take on a few more jobs. But that's the only ways of doing it, really. Do you work on your own, or is there an admin staff, and do you plan on taking on another man anytime soon? So I do work on my own, but I do have admin staff who are not employed. Well, I have my wife who is employed, so she does all the accounts, which is great. Then admin staff who aren't employed are like my call handling service, so that's a company called Factotum. They handle all my calls. I did try having a virtual assistant as well in the Philippines for a little while. That was more complicated than it was worth, to be honest, so I don't think I'm going to try that again. But no, it's basically just me and the phone handling service. Do I plan on taking another man soon? No, not really. 4. What is your story on how you started your own business and how did the first year go? So I have already talked about that, so I'm not going to touch on that one again. 5. Do you only quote for a job once you've seen it in person? Mostly yes. So if it's a simple and sort of standard job, sort of like a Nest thermostat installation or replacing a smoke alarm or 3 smoke alarms or something like that, or replacing 5 light fittings, replace 5 pendants with new light fittings supplied by the customer, then generally I'll just quote for it over the email without viewing the site. But if it's any more complicated than that, if there are any factors that I'm not sure about in advance that I need to take into consideration, then I just book in to go and give them a free quote. And I usually find that I win the work more like that as well, because when the customer meets you and they get you a good first impression, they're much more likely to go ahead with you and get the work done. So I do find it beneficial to actually visit the site to give a quote. So I try to do that as much as possible, but it does take up a lot of time. I probably spend a day a week just doing quotes. When it comes to actually visiting sites and then typing up the quotes in the office, I'd say I'd probably spend 6 to 8 hours a week just doing that, which it's time you're not actually getting paid for, so you kind of have to factor it into your pricing and everything and make sure that at the end of the week you still earn enough money to cover your business costs, make a profit to feed back to growing your business and pay you your wages. So I hope that answers your questions, McElhone, and that is all I've got time for today. But leave comments below if you would like to have any more questions answered. I can always do another Q&A in a few weeks' time, so leave all the questions that you still have below and I'll try to answer them at some point. Thanks for watching. If you haven't done so already, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more great videos coming soon. Thank you.